Hey guys, this is the Spyderco Para 3. I bought this knife for my wife about 1.5 years ago. She kept using my knives and not the best ones. So I gave her one of my Delicas. But she wasn't all too keen on that whole backlock thing. So I said, why don't we just see what you like and get you something of better quality. And she does like Spydercos. So she settled on the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 as her favorite because it has nice G10 handle scales and a compression lock. But she wanted something smaller. So I said, you are in luck. Spyderco does make the Para 3. I think about 4 or 5 years ago, a friend of mine sent me 5 of his folders to play around with. Now, 3 of them were brand new and 2 of them were very rare, so I didn't really work with them. I didn't carry them for fear of losing them. and But I did play around with them. I did put them in my pocket, see how they felt, and one of them was the Para 3. There were some reviews about the Para 3. A lot of people said it's a good knife, so by what I remembered, I said we'll just get you a Para 3. Last year we were in the process of moving, actually twice. There was a lot of packaging, a lot of cardboard around, so she went crazy on the cardboard cutting. But as soon as she started cutting cardboard with this knife, she said she didn't really like it. It wasn't very comfortable in her hand. At that point, it did have a deep carry pocket clip, much like this one. And so she picked up my Delica. This is a test knife, thinned out grind, low edge angle, and she continued cutting all the cardboard with this knife. It just plows through that. It's so thin behind the edge, has no issues. So we kept looking for a different knife and finally bought her another knife. So now I got the chance to play with this one. It was actually about half a year ago or so. By what I remembered about the other knife, it was a bit different. Fit and finish was better. One thing that I like about the Para 2, I think this is one of the best Spyderco models. There was a lot of thought put into this knife. Now I did, in my video about it, call it a bit boxy. And it is, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. Now, if you work for prolonged periods of time with this knife, it might get uncomfortable. Cutting hard materials, you will feel it. However, the boxiness also makes it easy to control. When your hand's getting tired from cutting endless amounts of cardboard, that boxiness will make it pretty easy to control. This is a very good model. And the best thing about the Para 2 for, well, knife nuts and average people is the action. I've disassembled this knife numerous times. I've sharpened it, I cleaned it, I work with it. I never have to fidget around with it. I just put it back together. I tighten the pivot, and the action's always good without having side-to-side blade play because it was built like that. Now, I assumed they would do the same thing for the Para 3, but they didn't. Right now, this knife has some side-to-side blade play. I don't know if you can hear it. There is some side-to-side blade play, and the knife is not drop shut smooth. See? Now, yeah, I can open it, but if I tighten the pivot to where I don't have any blade play, I will have a hard time flicking it out. I will be able to open it one-handed, but I can't flick it out. And I have to use 2 hands to close it. So that's one thing. I personally don't like to fidget around with the pivot screw until I get that perfect blade play, that perfect action where it doesn't have blade play and it is drop shutty or close to that. The military, great model. You have to fidget around with it a bit, but right now it doesn't have side-to-side blade play and it is drop shutty. I don't use oil when I put the knife back together. I personally don't like it. Some people do, I don't. Para 2, don't have to fidget around with it. Para 3, you do. Now, another thing. The deep carry pocket clip was not very comfortable with this knife, so I switched back to the normal pocket clip. I think that the lanyard hole is very, well, badly positioned on this knife, because even if you put a deep carry pocket clip, it's not going to be really that deep carry. And as it is, it sticks out of your pocket quite a bit. Some people like it, some people don't. That's up to you to decide if that's your thing. But I don't think the knife needs a lanyard hole. And if it does, why is it here? I have the feeling that the thought that was put into building this, maybe they tested it a lot, maybe, and adapted it. They had the paramilitary 1 model, and this is the para 3. The same amount of thought was not put into this one. A lot of people asked for it, and they built it. That was it. Now, this is something, maybe that's just me. Whenever I grab the knife to cut stuff with it, I will hold it like this. Not here, not here, but right here. This little beak here does not bother me. What does bother me is the pocket clip and these edges right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts, you're not going to mind that very much. But if you do this for a prolonged period of time, let's say you have to cut up some cardboard, you know, you're gonna throw it away, you cut it up so it's easier to carry, and you do that for half an hour, this is not gonna be comfortable. It wasn't comfortable for me, it wasn't comfortable for my wife. I gave this to a few friends. It's not as comfortable as, for example, the Para 2. Now, is it just because it's a bigger knife? Yes, but the Delica is a smaller knife, more comfortable, and we'll get to another knife in another video. So I don't like that. Now, I've been sitting around here. It was very cold today, but warmed up a bit. Now the sun is out, and I've been just shaving wood with different knives. And by far, this is the most uncomfortable. The pocket clip bothers me, and the edges. Now this one's equally as boxy as the Para 2, but more uncomfortable. For control, yes, you're gonna be able to control it. If you use a glove, no issues. Now I have nothing against small blades. Lately, I've kind of started to like them. I think the Delica is just a great knife, and I use this one mainly for tests. And I think it's very comfortable. It's also a decent carry now. The blade, maybe you can see it, it's much shorter than it used to be. But it's equally sized, and this one's much more comfortable if you're gonna do anything, even with the standard edge and standard grind on it. This one, I try to befriend it, but I can't. Now you can remove the pocket clip, and that's gonna take care of one issue. If I choke up on it like this, I still feel the pocket clip, but it's not as uncomfortable right here where my pinky is and in my palm. However, still feel it. If I hold it in a normal position, for me, for my hands, it's really uncomfortable right here where my pinky is. Maybe you have different hands, so maybe this means nothing to you. However, my wife has small hands, and it was uncomfortable for her. At the same time, she was very comfortable using the Para 2. So this is my gripe with it. I just feel you're gonna pay a similar price to this one, almost similar to the Para 3 as to the Para 2. A bit more thought put into the knife, because let's be honest, it is not an inexpensive knife. And now let's get to the worst part. For me, this is something that's specific to me: symmetrical grinds. The knife is ground more on this side than on this side. The grind is asymmetrical. Now you may probably see the width of the edge on this side and on this one. If you were to look at the knife, you said, well, you sharpen it at a different edge angle on this side. and that's true. However, this is 20 degrees per side, and this is 17. 17 because I wanted to make the edge a bit wider, but it was ground much more on this side and less on this side. If you have a knife that's ground asymmetrically, like this one, and you put 20 degrees per side on each side, you're gonna have, as in this case, a narrower edge on one side. But I dropped it down to remove more material to make them at least look the same. It's gonna be a smaller edge angle. It's going to be good for working. And I'm a right-handed person. My wife is also right-handed. It actually feels better. But aesthetically, it just doesn't look that good. The one I had was symmetrically ground. You can actually see it. If you look at it, I don't know, the camera probably won't pick it up very well. But for the price you pay for this money, it is my opinion that you should get a nice knife with a very good action. I think this one is, with a symmetrical grind. This one, honestly, having worked with more and more knives over the years, this one's still one of my favorites. I think it's pretty good. Are there some shortcomings? Yes. However, it's just, I think it's kind of worth the money. We're at a place where everything is overpriced. But for what you have to pay for this, I think if you want a good knife, yeah, the Para 2 is. And this is the S30V version. This knife is about, I think, 11 years old. I like it. I like it. The coating holds up very well. Edge holding abilities of S30V, I would say it's satisfactory. Now, you can get this in better steels. Nowadays, they use S45 yen. I don't know about that one, but it can't be that bad. And I think S30V is just enough for 99.9% of people. There are the ones who test things and the ones who really could use a special steel, but other than that. So yeah, this is not a bad knife by any means. Would I buy it for myself, or would I buy it again for my wife, knowing what I know now? I wouldn't. I haven't watched any reviews about the Para 3 lately. Before I bought this one, maybe I watched a couple, but everybody seemed to praise it. I don't know if people have mentioned these issues. Maybe it's just bad luck, and I got this model which has these problems. Except for comfort in hand, I don't imagine that's in any way different than the others. So that's why I decided to make the video. Maybe somebody didn't mention these. Maybe they are points you would like to think about before purchasing this knife. It's not a bad knife. What I think could be improved with this knife, it's easy. Drop the edge angle down, thin out the grind. For small knives with smaller handles, you're gonna really benefit from a thinner grind and a smaller edge angle, especially if you're gonna do stuff like cut through cardboard. And it's gonna be very resilient. Now, the tip is much like on the military and on the Para 2, very good for just cutting fine things, and it's resistant enough. Now, for my Para 2, I modified the tip. I ground it down a bit so it wouldn't break. In hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. I've done a few difficult things with my military, and the tip, as you can see, is still intact. So I think they're very sturdy. Now, any blade can break, bad heat treatment, or you just abuse it. I have seen people break this trying to pry with them. The blade broke right here where the hole is. If you're gonna need a knife to pry with it, it's just a tool. You're gonna pry with it. Who knows, maybe you have to open a door, get somewhere. It's an emergency. It's a tool. You're gonna use it as such. You might break it. I like stubby blades. I think they're very functional. I would have really liked this one, and I would have probably tried even more so to befriend this knife if it had a symmetrical grind and a better action. Like I said, as it stands now, I can do this, but it's nowhere near where the Para 2 is, with no blade play and drops shut. That's an important thing. A friend of mine asked me what kind of Spyderco knife he should buy, because he likes Spyderco. A lot of people do. A lot of people know about Spyderco, even if they're not knife people, knife nuts. And he said he was thinking about some models. And I said, don't. Just double the amount you're willing to spend and get yourself a Para 2. That's pretty much a safe bet. Granted, this is an 11-year-old knife. I have no idea how they build them nowadays. I hope they build them as they used to, because I'm not going to sell this knife ever. This is just one knife that I like, not just because it works, but also because of the action, because it is very fidgety. It's a good carry. The pocket clip, the deep carry pocket clip I put on this one, doesn't bother me with work. So yeah, Spyderco can make great things. It is my opinion that in this case, they could have put a lot more thought into it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found out things you haven't heard anywhere else. It's definitely up to you. Your hands may be way different than mine, and this might feel very comfortable. For me, it doesn't, and the action and the grind make it a bad purchase. If you have any thoughts, questions about the Para 3, leave them down in the comment section. I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, and as always, I wish you all a great day.